Is anyone out there listening? Good. You've tuned into Lavender Town Radio, the only station brave enough to broadcast the static between worlds. Tonight, we have a story for you, a whisper from the shadows, a tale woven from the dark pages of the Pokédex that they never wanted you to read. But first, a small favor. If you find a chilling comfort in our stories, show your support by hitting the like button. It's a small click for you, but it's a beacon for us in the digital darkness. And to ensure you never miss a transmission, make sure you subscribe and ring that little bell. It helps our signal cut through the noise. All right, the signal is clear. Now, are you comfortable? Good. Let's begin.
In my world, there are two kinds of spotlights. The first is the stage light. It's hot, blinding, and full of promise. It turns you into something larger than yourself, an actress, an icon, a champion. It's a beautiful mask, hiding the exhaustion and the cracks within. I have lived under that light for most of my life. I understand it. I command it. The second kind is the flashing light of a police car. It's cold, strobing with a soulless rhythm, and promises nothing but tragedy. It doesn't hide, it exposes. It shines on the darkest corners of human nature, on dried pools of blood and fears still fresh. For the last 3 weeks, Lumiose City, the city of light, had been drowning in the second kind. The call came late one evening while I was on set, trying to lose myself in the role of an ancient Kalos queen. My holocaster buzzed with Clemen's ID. I'd smiled, assuming the boy genius was calling to show off another of his inventions. But the voice on the other end of the line extinguished my smile instantly. Diantha, the boy who could solve any problem with logic and machinery, said, his voice trembling in a way I'd never heard before. You have to come. I've lost control. The world of scripts and roles dissolved. I was listening to real fear. Clemen, what's wrong? I asked, signaling the director to cut. 4 of them. 4 murders in 2 weeks. Brutal. The killer, he leaves no trace. No DNA, no fingerprints, nothing. My patrol bots, the surveillance systems, they're useless. He's like a ghost. I stayed silent, letting him continue. And the scenes, gods, Diantha, the scenes, the cuts, deep, clean. The investigators said they looked like they were made by a Pokémon move, Night Slash or Psycho Cut. A heavy silence stretched across the line. I could hear the faint whirring of gears from his lab, a mundane sound that now felt jarringly out of place. But that's not the worst part, he continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. Before every murder, Diantha, every single one, there's a witness. The same witness. I knew the answer before he said it. An Absol. All of Kalos knows the legend of Absol, the disaster Pokémon, a beautiful and tragic creature driven by an uncontrollable instinct to warn of coming calamities, a messenger forever mistaken for the message itself. It's been seen near each victim's home just hours before they were killed, Clement finished, the exhaustion in his voice almost tangible. The city is in a panic. They're calling it the Beast of Lumiose. They're forming hunting parties. I've lost control, Diantha. My logic doesn't work here. This city is eating itself alive with fear. I need you. Lumiose needs its champion. The call ended. I stood there, draped in the opulent costume of a queen, yet feeling utterly exposed. A killer was exploiting a legend, and a Pokémon was paying the price. I arrived in Lumiose the next morning. The city I loved, whose boulevards were always filled with laughter and light, now wore a grim veil. Even under the morning sun, I could feel the encroaching darkness. The faces I passed on the streets lacked their usual chic elegance. In its place was suspicion, fear. People glanced into dark alleys with nervous eyes, flinching at the slightest sound. Clement looked worse than he sounded. He was thinner, his eyes shadowed with dark circles behind his glasses, his blonde hair a mess. His lab, normally a place of order and invention, was now a chaotic mess of security monitors and reports. He struck again last night, a banker in the Estival Avenue district. The scene was identical. I glanced over the crime scene photos, trying to suppress a wave of nausea, the clean cuts, the calculated brutality. The Absol? I asked. Seen on the opposite balcony at 10 p.m. The victim was found at midnight, Clement replied. The pattern is perfect, too perfect. Exactly, I agreed. Too perfect for a wild animal's attack. That night, for the first time, I saw it. I was standing on my hotel balcony, looking down at the city sinking into darkness. And there, on the roof of a historic building a few blocks away, a white figure appeared. It stood there, an elegant but lonely silhouette, its white fur almost glowing under the streetlights. It was large, bigger than any Absol I had ever seen. Even from a distance, I could make out an old scar running down the side of one of its eyes. It stood for a moment, a silent sentinel, before turning and vanishing into the shadows. It didn't look vicious, it just looked tired and profoundly alone.
The fifth murder happened 2 days later. The victim was an elderly composer, a Lumiose legend named Alistair Moreau, who lived alone in a lavish apartment on Autumnal Avenue. When we arrived, the apartment was already surrounded by the flashing blue and red lights. Inside, the air was heavy. Alistair was slumped over his grand ebony piano, his face pressed against the keys, but it was his hands that made everyone turn away. His 10 fingers had been severed, cleanly, neatly, and they had been carefully rearranged on the white keys, forming a gruesome C-sharp minor 7th chord. Blood had stained the ivory keys red, dripping onto the floor. The room, aside from the piano, was perfectly tidy. The killer had not been rushed. He had taken his time. He was an artist, and this was his work. Clement began analyzing the scene with his devices, but I needed air. I stepped out into the hallway. My Gardevoir, ever at my side, let out a soft moan, a hand pressed to its temple. Sorrow, its voice echoed in my mind. So much sorrow, but not from the one who died. It came from outside. I interviewed the neighbors. They all told the same story. They had seen the Absol on the rooftop across the street around 8 p.m. It just kept pacing, one man said, like a caged Pidgeot. It gave me the creeps. But then a door opened a crack. A little girl, no older than 7, peeked out, clutching her mother's dress. I saw it, she whispered. I knelt down to her level. You did, sweetie? What did it look like? It looked sad, her eyes clear and honest. It wasn't growling. It just stared at Mr. Moreau's window, and it scraped its claws on the roof tiles, like it was trying to say something, but it couldn't. A bloodthirsty monster doesn't look sad. It doesn't try to communicate. I returned to the apartment, where Clement was examining the cuts under a digital microscope. You were right, Diantha, he said, looking up at me. These aren't the marks of a wild beast.
Look, the incisions are incredibly precise. No signs of serration or hesitation. This is the work of a sharp, crafted blade wielded by an extremely steady hand. Our killer is not a Pokémon. No, I said, looking out the window toward the roof where the Absol had stood. He's a man, and the Absol isn't the cause of the disaster. It's the one trying to stop it. My theory changed everything. We were no longer hunting a Pokémon. We were hunting a human who was using an entire city's fear as a smokescreen for his crimes. But how to find him? He left no physical evidence, and our only witness, the Absol, was being hunted by the entire city. We have to change tactics, I told Clement. Instead of hunting the Absol, we have to protect it, follow it. It's our compass. It will lead us to the next victim before the killer strikes. Clement, though still skeptical, agreed that his logic had failed. He deployed his newest invention, a fleet of near-invisible, silent microdrones to tail the Absol from a distance. The sixth murder didn't make us wait long. It was the very next night. Clement's drones reported the Absol moving quickly toward Vernal Avenue, the district of theaters and art academies. We raced there. It was standing on the roof of a dance academy. It wasn't moving, just standing there, a still white shadow, staring intently at a window on the top floor. We're going in the back, I said over the comms. Clement, you and your squad block the main entrance. No one in or out. But we were too late. By the time we broke down the door to the studio, the scene was already cold. The victim was a young ballerina, a rising star. Her body had been brutally bent into an impossible arabesque, her joints dislocated, her legs, her pride, and her artistic tools had been savaged by dozens of deep cuts. Most of the mirrors in the studio had been shattered, but one large mirror on the far wall remained intact, and on it, drawn in the victim's blood, was a crude, vicious symbol of an Absol's crescent horn. It was a taunt, a blatant attempt to frame it. While the police processed the scene, Gardevoir and I went outside, hoping to find the Absol. We found it in a narrow alley, cornered. It was panting heavily, and there was a fresh gash on its side, perhaps from where it had tried to intervene and failed. This time, it didn't run. It stood its ground, facing us. Its red eyes met mine, and for a moment, I didn't see a wild beast. I saw a weary warrior, a soldier trapped behind enemy lines. It let out a low growl, not of aggression, but of frustration. Then it looked pointedly toward the Magenta Plaza district, the neighborhood of artists and galleries. A clue. Before I could react, it leaped onto a dumpster, then to a fire escape, and vanished into the Lumiose night. I shakily whispered, "It's showing us. The killer, he's an artist." Back at the crime scene, I found something the police had missed. On a shard of the broken window frame, where the killer likely entered, was a small smear of oil paint, cobalt blue, still slightly tacky. We now had a profile, an artist likely living or working in Magenta Plaza, who used a sharp blade and had knowledge of Pokémon. But Lumiose had thousands of artists. The search was like looking for a needle in a haystack, and we were running out of time. Every night, the Absol looked more tired. Its injuries were accumulating. We had seen it several times, cornered by the self-proclaimed civil patrols. They weren't concerned citizens anymore. They were angry mobs, fueled by fear and misinformation. On that fateful night, we were tailing the Absol through the rooftops of Magenta Plaza. It was limping badly, clearly in pain. And then we saw them. A group of about 10 people, armed with clubs and rocks. They had managed to corner the Absol on a dead-end rooftop. "Kill the beast," a man yelled. "For Alistair! For my daughter!" another woman shrieked, hurling a brick. The brick struck the Absol's shoulder, making it buckle onto one knee. But it didn't cry out in pain. It just looked at them, its red eyes filled with a tragic confusion. "Stop!" I shouted, leaping across the gap from the adjacent building. Clement and a few officers were right behind me. The mob turned, and I was shocked by what I saw. Not the faces of thugs, the faces of neighbors, shopkeepers, ordinary people. Faces twisted by hysteria. "Get out of the way, champion," the man with the club snarled. "This isn't your business. That monster killed our people." "You're mistaken," I said, placing myself in front of the Absol. "It's not the killer. It's trying to protect you." "Protect us?" the woman laughed, a wild, unhinged sound. "It brings disaster. Everyone knows that. It's a curse." Clement stepped forward. "As the gym leader of this city, I order you to lower your weapons and disperse." "Gym leader?" another young man scoffed. "What have your machines done to stop the killings? While we're losing our loved ones, you sit in your shiny towers. We'll deliver our own justice." Rage flared inside me. "Your justice is to attack a wounded and innocent creature? You're no better than the murderer you're hunting." But my words were useless. Reason was dead in this city. They saw only a monster and they wanted it to pay. They started to advance, clubs raised. "Gardevoir," I commanded. My partner appeared, creating a psychic barrier that pushed the mob back. They fell, but got up again, the fear in their eyes replaced by pure hatred. They no longer respected the champion. They no longer respected the gym leader. All they had left was their fanaticism. In the midst of the chaos, the Absol, despite its pain, did something strange. It used its horn to flick a small object toward me. It rolled to a stop at my feet. A broken paintbrush, smeared with cobalt blue oil paint. The Absol gave me one last look, then with a phenomenal effort, it leaped over the mob, landed heavily on the next roof, and disappeared into the darkness. I looked down at the paintbrush, then up at the enraged mob, and I felt a cold sense of futility. We were trying to save a city that didn't want to be saved, protecting a hero they only wanted to destroy. And I was afraid that in this fight, we were all going to lose.
And so, our story comes to a close, but the echoes always remain, don't they? Thank you for spending your time with me here at Lavender Town Radio. Your presence makes these dark nights a little less lonely. But do not be mistaken, this is not the end. The true nightmare is yet to come. This was only part 1. What did you think of tonight's tale? What horrors did it awaken in you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. I find them illuminating. If this story sent a chill down your spine, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It's the only way to ensure you'll be here to witness the conclusion. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.